The president of the Consumer Electronics Association takes issue with me over my position on so-called free trade policies that cater to business and multinationals. Electronic Association President Gary Shapiro challenged me to a debate saying, quote, Dobbs, not Mr. Dobbs, it's just Dobbs, anti-trade comments on his cable show and his refusal to grant equal time to opposing viewpoints are inconsistent with CNN's great legacy as a pioneering news network. We are hopeful that CNN will wish to retain its credibility. Whoa. Well, CA President Gary Shapiro joins me now. We're going to have that debate. Now, let me say, I'm one of those folks who pioneered this joint. But it's good to have you here. I don't know why you wanted to debate me, but here we are. Fire at will, Gridley.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Lou. I wouldn't call this debate. This is not a debate format, but you're very gracious to have me.
Sure.
Look, Lou, the fact is everyone knows you're a protectionist. You want to close the borders. We think they should be open.
Stop. I'm sorry. We got to stop the debate. All right? Just for an insert, and then you can continue.
Okay.
One, I have never, ever, once called for higher tariffs or to stop international trade in any way. Therefore, how could I be a protectionist?
Well, you may not be a protectionist in your view, but you play one on TV.
Okay, that's a very, very cute expression. I give you credit for a nice line. Now, again, the definition of a protectionist is?
Well, Lou, a protectionist is someone who wants to close off the borders. You want to rescind our trade. You have said you want to rescind our trade agreements. We have free trade agreements which have been nothing but beneficial to the United States.
Nothing but beneficial?
Absolutely.
Should I respond?
If you'd like.
Okay. Beneficial to the point that we've run 31 consecutive years of trade deficits. We now have a trade debt that is in excess of $6 trillion. We have a trade debt that is rising faster than our national debt of $9 trillion. We've lost more than 3 million manufacturing jobs. This country cannot even clothe itself because we have outsourced and offshored the production of clothing in nearly every element possible in apparel overseas. So I don't quite understand how beneficial it is. Help me out.
Well, you've given a lot of partial facts. I know I'm not going to change your mind, but I'd like to present the whole story. We've lost 3 million American jobs, but you know we've gained 25 million jobs in the last 15 years because of free trade agreements. 25 million high-paying, good jobs. We've also, every country that we have a free trade agreement with, our exports have grown dramatically. We've gotten more jobs. Teal in Lexington, Kentucky is a loudspeaker maker. They are exporting. They're hiring people. They've just hired a mother of 6 kids because they're exporting more loudspeakers. Why? Because of free trade. The U.S. is an open free trade company. What these agreements do, Lou, is that they allow us to get into other countries. That's why it baffles me that you oppose them.
Okay. Let me help you a little bit then with it as to why. How many of your members would you say produce goods overseas and bring them to the United States?
Well, we have 2,200 corporate members. 80% of those are small businesses. A large number of them are manufactured in the U.S. We have almost 800,000 U.S. Americans employed in facilities in the U.S. We're making jobs like yours. In fact, that camera over there, that's not made in the U.S. That allows you to be broadcast. That allows you to be shown.
My question was this, Gary. How many of your members produce goods for export to the United States?
For export to the United States, none of them do. What we have is you must be a U.S. company to be a member of ours. That's what we have. We have mostly small businesses. We have companies like Sony, which manufactures in Pennsylvania TV sets. We have companies like MyTech in Arizona, which employs several hundred workers manufacturing all sorts of audio products. So many companies manufacture in the U.S., but that's not the point. The point is that free trade is good for the country, and putting up borders and putting up walls is bad. And as much as you say free trade is you're a free trader, you don't want free trade agreements. You oppose them every chance you get, and that's not good for this country, Lou.
Let me try this again. The country can't clothe itself. The country imports most of its consumer electronics, 80% of them. We are told by many, like you, who talk blithely about free trade, that this is a knowledge or service economy, but in point of fact, we are now a net importer of technology. We rely upon China and much of Asia for more than 80% of our computers in this country. And the reality is, I'm just curious, you have sort of said that's part of the story, but what I've said to you is 31 consecutive years of trade deficits, a quarter of $1 trillion with China alone. We have a $6 trillion trade debt. that is, frankly, contributing to a decline in the dollar, which is doing only this, which is making the goods that we are importing, consumer electronics, for example, making them even more expensive for a nation that really can't afford it right now.
Well, I've heard you're saying few statistics repeatedly, but there's other statistics as well. 20% of our exports are technology, $160 billion a year. And you want to talk about that trade deficit? Let's face it, most of it is oil. 70% of it has to do with oil.
No, so that's not, whoa, partner. No, that isn't.
Well, you're entitled
true.
to your opinion, but you're not entitled to a different set of facts.
No, I'm not. And what I would like to point out to you is the deficit itself, what percentage is oil?
70% of the trade deficit in 2006 had to do with oil. I would guess it's higher in 2007.
And what percentage went to China, to Japan, to Germany?
Of course, I could get you those numbers later, but the fact, yes, we have a trade deficit with China.
The reality is this. We have a significant deficit in exports to imports, do we not?
Well, our exports are going up.
If we were to eliminate $400 billion in oil imports, we would still have $500 billion in deficit.
So your answer is to put up a wall around the U.S. and that would help us how?
This is your answer. I'm not saying put up a wall around the United States at all.
Well, what do you want to do?
Gary,
what is your answer on trade?
My answer is very straightforward, and I've said it a number of times, but which you and your association of importers have apparently failed to take note. I have said that I want to see a reciprocal, mutual, balanced trade policy carried out by this country. In other words, I want us to have precisely the same trade balance as our principal trade partners around the world.
Well, you have an economics degree from Harvard, and you know that's unprecedented and undoable and unlikely and would hurt this country.
Oh, and tell me to what degree we can benefit.
Give me an example of when protectionist policy like that has ever been successful.
That's not a protectionist policy. You didn't listen. I said reciprocal, mutual, and balanced. A protectionist policy would be mercantile and would insist upon advantage. I'm not calling for a surplus in trade. I'm not calling for an advantage in trade. I'm calling for balance, mutuality, and reciprocity.
So we can't buy our oil unless they buy our products? Is that what you're saying?
You're a fan of Chinese exports to this country and imports. You think that's wonderful. What is China's, for example? What is their trade policy? What is Germany's? What is the UK?
And it's exactly why we need free trade policies and free trade agreements. They lay out what their responsibilities are.
You and your members would bankrupt this country with a smile on your face talking about its contribution.
Absolutely not. Free trade agreements help this country. They improve
then how is it that
double-digit increases.
A $6 trillion trade debt?
Because we're doing very well, and our economy is going faster than other countries lately. That's what it is. You know that.
Why is it that this country, to this date, is now totally reliant, not only for its consumer spending, but now for its corporate balance sheets in the financial services area for foreign capital?
We're getting investments. Why are our exports growing lately?
Partner,
why are our exports growing?
Bailouts. We're getting bailouts. And there's quite a distinction.
Well, we have the right to invest in other countries. They have the right to invest in the United States. That's
and you
free
have
trade.
the right to your view, and I mine. I hope that we've had our debate.
Let's have a real debate sometime.
Well, that would require, again, the possibility that you would represent someone other than those who are creating those exports for us to buy.
Employers aren't bad glue. They create jobs. Just remember that.
I think you said 800,000 of them, right?
Yes.
Out of a total of 150 million jobs in this country and a $13 trillion economy that's keeping your boys and girls at those lovely companies going. And from America to them, you're welcome. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.